Thanks for coming. This talk is from tech hobby to tech paycheck. Can it be done? So I thought I'd ask, sometimes at my talks I have recruiters, headhunters come to my talk, and you're welcome to participate. Does anybody here work for a recruiting firm or works for human resources? You're the person that reviews the resumes or anything like that? Okay, all right, I'll just wing it. Sometimes it's really interesting because it kind of turns into a mini job fair when I'm done speaking. And everybody's like handing in resumes. So the reason I put together this talk is because in game jams, I see people, a game jam is an event when people come together for 48 hours and they make games. So people show up on a Friday, we all get a theme. I know a few people here participated in game jams. And so Friday there's a theme, and by Sunday everybody's game has to be done. So it's a very, very rapid prototyping process. And I have seen people, students, with no professional credits, but they can come to a game jam, they can make a game in 48 hours, port it to a smartphone, Android device, or an iPhone, get it onto the Google Play Store or iTunes Store within 48 hours, have it making money within 48 hours. And I go, wow, that's some pretty awesome skills. Let me see your resume. And I get the resume, and all it will say is like, graduated from Southern Illinois University. And it doesn't show all this other cool stuff that they can do. And I want to tell people that if you can do this stuff as a hobby, there are recruiters who will crawl on broken glass to get to you. You just need to be able to communicate what it is that you do. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about here. For example, I'm talking to recruiters, and one of the things they're asking for all the time is Java. Java, 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 Java. And I've had students come in who've just played with Java a little bit, and you can see the recruiters like kind of edging to get closer to those people. That's how hungry they are for anyone that knows Java at all right now. There are companies, like the US Postal Service did a program where they would say, come in, we will teach you Java, we will pay for your training in return for you promising to work for us for 6 months. That's how desperate some of these employers are. So what I'm going to try and do here is kind of explain how to communicate what it is that you do. And the number one piece of advice that I have is really LinkedIn. LinkedIn had kind of a bad rep a couple years ago, but it's really improved a great deal, and it's very much an online resume service right now. I highly recommend everybody to make a LinkedIn bio. Pretty much every single recruiter is going to LinkedIn right now, and they're doing very, very sophisticated searches. They're also going to other sites as well. But the cool thing about LinkedIn is that you have so much control over it. You can go in, you can post every job you've ever had, you can post every volunteer project you've done, anything that you think is kind of cool. Have you written a cool blog or an interesting article? Do you have a certificate in something? Post everything on LinkedIn. No limits at all. You can post anything you want. And also, if you're looking for a job, one of the things that you want to have is the elevator pitch. Like if you're standing next to a hiring manager in an elevator and you have 20 seconds, 30 seconds of their time, and they turn to you and say, what is it that you're looking for? You should be able to answer that question. You shouldn't be kind of casting about and thinking, well, I don't know, well, maybe I want to do this. You should just have a really clear answer, and you want to be able to answer, where would you like to work geographically? What would you like to do, like what kind of industry? And which, if you have a specific job that you want, you should be able to rattle that right off. And a salary is also good to know. And if you don't know what kind of salary you can make, it's good to research this and find out what is your worth in the marketplace. What is your value? You can go to salary.com, you can go to glassdoor.com. There's other places where you can search on these kinds of databases. So if someone comes to me and says, hey, Elonka, what are you looking for? I would say, well, I'd really like to stay in the game industry. I realize the top cities for that are going to be Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, DC area, Boston. But I'm open to opportunities in other industries. I'm a project manager, I'm a certified Scrum Master, I'm a PMP. I'm kind of open to negotiating different salaries. But then if they ask me a number, I'd give them a specific number. So once you're able to articulate what it is that you want, it's easier for the universe to give you what you want. But if you don't know what you're asking for, the universe often doesn't know what to give you back. Creating a resume, there's a lot of confusion about resumes. People think, oh, well, do I need to put everything I've ever done on a resume? And no. Generally, and there's a lot of discussion on this, but generally it's a good idea to have a one-page resume. And the purpose of the resume is not to list everything, but to let a very, very busy hiring manager just get a quick idea of what you can do. Hiring managers are not going to spend several minutes on a resume, reading everything on your resume, understanding you as a person. Instead, they're probably going to be looking at a resume for about 10 seconds. 10 to 15 seconds is pretty typical for a hiring manager. So you want just kind of that quick snapshot of what you can do. The resume, the purpose of the resume is to get you past that first screening process in order to get an interview. And then once you get the interview, then you can go into more details of things. Now there is a debate on resume. Should it be a one-page resume? Should it be a two-page resume? Should you put everything? And there is, different people will give you different answers on that. When in doubt, just make it short, sweet, one page. I've got multiple versions of resumes. When I apply for a job, I'll often tailor the resume for the job that I'm applying for, which can be a pain in the ass, but it does pay off. So you might want to start with one big, long resume that has everything, and then if you're applying for one job, then you just strip out all the stuff that's not related to that job, get it down to a one or a two-page resume, and then have that as one resume, and then for another job, again, you start with the long resume and you tear everything out, and then you apply for the next job. Same with cover letters. You want to have personalized cover letters. All right. On the resume, don't just, when you list a job, don't just list what your job description was, saying, well, I was responsible for this and this and this. Instead, list not only what you did, but how well you did it. You want to quantify things as much as possible. So instead of saying, I answered customer emails, that doesn't say anything to a hiring manager. You could say, I answered 50 emails per day, and I got an approval rating on a scale of 1 to 5 of 3.8. That says not only what you did, but how well you did it. Keep things short. You want just a few bullet points. Yeah, quantify as much as possible. If anybody wants help on this, if you brought a resume here, or if you just want to corner me at some point during the convention, I'm happy to take a look and give you advice on ways that you might want to rewrite things. Or I'll say, hey, good job, go with this one. Where to send your resume. Again, a good rule of thumb is you want to go for 6 different job boards, 2 each in 3 different categories. So one of the categories is going to be the general job boards out there, the aggregators, Monster, Indeed. Second category is going to be something specific to your industry. Are you in the tech industry? You want to go post a resume on dice.com. If you're in the game industry, you want to go post a resume on gamasutra.com. I can't tell you exactly where because I don't know the exact industries you're going for, but generally anyone in this room, if you're looking for a job, you want to be on dice.com. And then the third category is going to be locality, something specific to the city or area where you want to work. If it's 2 different cities, then go to those 2 different areas. So maybe you want to go and you want to look at the job board there. For Craigslist, if not sure, figure out what the newspaper is in that area. Go look up at that newspaper, and there's probably going to be a job section on that newspaper website. Craigslist, LinkedIn.com also has a good jobs page. And then once you've got your resume up on one of these sites, don't just say, okay, I've posted it and walk away. You want to be updating it at least once a month. Even if you don't have anything new to put on it, refresh it, because the recruiters who are doing the searching are going to be searching by most recently updated. And I've noticed every time I go to Monster or Dice and I update my resume, usually within about 24 hours I get another 5 or 6 headhunter calls, because they've got a filter set up saying these are new resumes that showed up with these particular keywords. When you apply to a specific company, some people will look at a job description and they'll think, oh, you know, it's not perfect. I can't do every single thing on the job description. Just use the 80% rule. If you think that about 80% of that job description applies to you, it's safe to apply. They're not expecting you to be a 100% fit. 80% is fine. And apply to lots of companies. If you see a bunch of and you see a company, you've never heard of the company, you think, should I apply or not? Apply. It doesn't hurt at all to apply. What's the worst that can happen is they come back and say, hey, we're interested, we'd like to interview you. That's not a bad, that's a high-class problem. However, most of the time when you apply, 90 to 95% of the time, you will hear nothing. And this is not about you, it's not about your resume, it's just the way things work. So don't feel bad that everybody that applies, 90 to 95% of the time, you get nothing back. So when you apply, if at all possible, send a cover letter. Cover letters matter. I've talked to hiring managers who have said if they don't get a cover letter, the resume goes straight into the pile. May not feel fair, but that's the way that they're operating. Cover letter should be, and I can give you more specific examples later about how to write a cover letter, but what job are you applying for? And then what specifically can you do, according to the job description that you've seen there, how do you match? How are you the right puzzle piece for that? Indicate that you're interested and how to be contacted. Short and sweet. But it shows that you've taken like an extra minute to show why you're the right person. And again, you may not be talking to the person who's going to be your boss. You're probably talking to someone who's like 5 levels different, doesn't even know about the job, may not be computer literate at all. So you're just trying to get past that first buffer. And so, yeah, make it easy for them. And if they bring you in for an interview, a thank you note is a really good thing. Some people will send it in email, some people will do it handwritten. Most applicants don't send thank you notes. Okay, I realize it takes extra time to do, but thank you notes matter. People remember them. The hiring manager gets that thank you note, they get the card, it goes on their desk, and it's a way to get your name into their memory. If you get through to an interview, read up on the company before the interview. Because when they ask you, do you have any questions, you don't want to be saying, so what is it your company does? That's not a good interview technique. You want to go into some sort of forewarned foreknowledge. Many interviewers are asking what's called behavioral interview questions. You can Google these, there's a whole bunch of them. Read through them and have an answer prepared. Example of a behavioral interview question. Tell us about a time you failed. Tell us about a time you were in conflict. Tell us what your last boss would say your strengths and weaknesses are. These are tough things to answer. But if you think about them beforehand, you're less likely to fumble when you go into the interview. And when you're being asked about a failure, you know, there's things like, oh, say my failure is I'm too detail-oriented or something. You can talk about a way that you really screwed up, but then follow it up by saying, and here's what I learned from that. And interviewers really like hearing that stuff. And then also have some questions ready for the interviewer. Benefits, vacation. If the interviewer says, so do you have any questions for me? And the first question you ask is, how much time off do I get? May not give the right impression. So you might want to hold off on some of those questions until you get further on into the interview process and you know that the job's going to be a good fit. Let me see. Another good question to ask is, you can ask how many people are being considered for this job? What is the next step? And a question I like to ask is, if I were hired, what could I do in the first 90 days on the job that you would say, wow, she was the right person for this job? What could I do in the first 90 days that I would get a 5-star review? And that'll also tell you a lot about the job, and it'll give you an idea also of the interviewer of how much they know about what it is that you're supposed to be doing. So, looking for a job, it is a job, and you want to be prepared, especially if you're applying to a lot of places. You want to have a spreadsheet or some kind of note-taking system where you keep track of all the places that you've applied to. When did you apply? Did you hear anything back from them? Especially when talking to recruiters. You don't want to have double dipping where you have 2 recruiters who are both sending you into the same job, because at that job they're probably going to toss your resume right into the trash can, because they don't want to get into any kind of a debate of if you're hired, which recruiter do they then have to pay a bonus to. So you want to make it really clear that you're only working with one recruiter for one particular company. You can keep track of this. If you go through one recruiter for a job and you never hear anything back, and then 3 months later another recruiter comes in and they want to submit you to that company, it's probably okay, because then you've got enough separation. But around the same time, work really hard to keep it separate. So I get recruiters like Monsanto is in St. Louis, and all the time Monsanto puts up a new job, and I suddenly have, in one day, 10 different recruiters contact me all for the same Monsanto job. And and often they won't tell you it's Monsanto. They'll just say, oh, there's a Scrum Master job in Creve Coeur. And I'm like, this is the Monsanto job, right? So it's okay to ask, who's the end client? Who are you, which company are you trying to represent here? They're used to that kind of question, and they appreciate it if you're just really clear with them. Other resources, I cannot recommend this site enough. It's called Career Tools, Manager Tools. Two guys graduated from West Point, then became recruiters for some Fortune 500 companies, and now do a regular series of podcasts, a couple podcasts a week. They've got hundreds of podcasts out there, information-rich, like 20-minute bursts of information on everything. How to write your resume, how to deal with an interview, how to deal with getting laid off, how to negotiate salary, what to do in the 10 minutes before an interview, what to do, how to choose the kind of companies you want to work for, how to answer those behavioral interview questions. Lots of stuff, all free. I'm listening to this all the time. I'm listening on my smartphone. I got it playing in my car. Really good stuff. They talk a lot, but one caveat is they talk a lot about personality styles, and it's something called the DISC profile, D-I-S-C, just sort of like the Myers-Briggs, like INTJ and ENTP. But they go with DISC, which is, and you can take it, it's like an 8-question test and find out. So you'll often hear them saying things like, well, if you're a high D, you want to do this. And if you're a high I who's talking to a high S, you want to do this. It's the first time I was listening to the counselor, like, what the hell does this mean? But once you've taken the personality test, then it makes a lot more sense. Continuing education. Sometimes as you're looking through the various job boards, you're going to see what kinds of skills that everybody's really advertising for. Like I mentioned, Java. Everybody's looking for Java right now. Well, if you don't know Java, most people in here, you're high IQ. I can tell on the bell curve, you're over at that edge of really bright people. Go learn Java. And there's a lot of places you can go and you can learn it for free. Codecademy, lynda.com. I'm just listing a very, very few here. Just go to Google and type, how can I learn Java? And you will get a long list of sites, all free. Well, most free, you can ignore it. Okay, game industry, because this is something that I know. I've been in the game industry for over 24 years now. For those people that are looking for a job in the game industry, one of the things is, well, if you want to get in the game industry, make a game. How to make a game? Go to a game jam. Just Google game jams. You'll find out information about them. The next global game jam is going to be at the end of January. You can also look for something called the IGDA, which is the International Game Developer Association. There's chapters all over the country, all over the world. You can also look for job fairs. So say the Game Developers Conference happens once a year in California. Maybe you can't go to their job fair to hand out the resume, but you can go research them on the web, find out which companies had booths at the job fair at GDC, and then go and apply to those companies directly. Also, gamasutra.com. That is the website for all kinds of information game industry related. So you can go to their job page and you can look and see what kinds of skills they're hiring for. And you can also quantify it because you can see they've got production, and they've got art, and they've got programming, and you see little numbers next to each category. So the production category, they might have 2, and art category, they might have 6. And then it gets to software engineers, and it's like 37. Those are the skills that they're really looking for. And then read those descriptions. What kinds of skills are they looking for? How can you make yourself more marketable? Also, if you're looking for a game industry job, go on Twitter. There's a hashtag called GameJobs. Do a filter on hashtag GameJobs. And you can probably do this for other industries as well, tech industries that are actually advertising on Twitter. Because some people don't want to pay the $100, $200 to get a job ad up on Gamasutra or Monster, so they'll just post something on Twitter. Cliff Blazinski, he just posted a tweet and just 2 words, I'm hiring. Just got tons and tons of resumes coming into him. There are some game recruiting firms out there, MaryMargaret.com, GameRecruiter.com. However, I'll be honest, LinkedIn is really the dominant force now. People are not going through recruiters in the game industry as much. They're just going on to LinkedIn and they're just searching for the skills they want. So, summary. Looking for a job is a job. You want to work hard at it. Be able to answer the question, what is it that you're looking for? Where do you want to work? What industry? What kind of jobs? If you're not sure what kind of job you want, think about friends that you have and think about who are you jealous of? Who do you have as a friend you go, wow, I wish I had their job. And maybe that's the job that you want. And network. They say it's often not about what you know, it's about who you know. It does apply. Most of the jobs out there, people get them not through the job boards, but because they hear of someone who told them that there's a job opening in a particular company. And when you go to an interview, approach it with a very positive attitude. Be high energy. You cannot be too high energy in a job interview. And approach it as though this could be your dream job, because maybe it will be. Okay, any questions? Yes?
You mentioned earlier about the cover letters.
Cover letters.
Some company uses automated systems. So, in that case, then the cover letter will probably not work.
Okay, I'm sorry, speaking like
Yeah, some company uses automated system to process your resume. In those cases, they don't include anything for cover letters or any kind of sort of introduction.
Right.
So what would you do then?
Yeah. You have to go with whatever their application system is, and if they don't have an option for cover letters, you can't do it. Sometimes there'll be like a note section and you can try and paste something in there, but often that's such a big company that you're right, the cover letter wouldn't even be read anyway. If it's a company you really want to get into, though, what I would do is, again, I would go to LinkedIn and I would search on that company. And I would see, do I know anyone who works at that company? Or do I know anyone who knows anyone who works at that company? And contact them. Because many companies, they understand that getting into the company is hard, and they look for referrals from within their own workforce. And so, like, if you're applying to Microsoft, try to contact someone at Microsoft and say, hey, I really want this job. Can you help me get my signal through the noise? And then they'll, pull the right strings and ropes and bells on their end and say, hey, this guy, Joe Blender, is you really want to take a look at his resume. Go find it in his stack of hundreds of resumes that we have. Any other questions? Sure. Well, let's wait for the. We need that throwable microphone like we have at DragCon.
Yeah. So for the slides, are these slides linked at the PhreakNIC site, or where can I get the slide?
Considering I made these slides about 15 minutes ago, they're not up yet, but they will be.
Okay.
So if you send me an email, and I'll send you a copy of the slides.
Funny story about your computer.
Mm-hmm.
Funny story about your computer.
Yeah. I've had many computer troubles over the last couple days. If you check on Twitter, you'll see a computer with duct tape on it, and that was my computer. So.
That thank you note you were talking about earlier, what would you recommend specifically putting into it? Like, thank them for what?
For a thank you note?
Yeah.
Thank you note, and there's actually a podcast on Career Tools about how to write a thank you note. Real simple, 3 sentences. Start off with thank you for whatever it is they did. And then 1 sentence saying something so they know it's not a form message thank you note, and then some follow-up. You don't want to ask any questions in a thank you note. So someone that brought you in for an interview, I might say, Dear Gene, thank you very much for your time in the interview. I really enjoyed our chat. I'm very interested in working for company name, looking forward to getting to know you better. Sincerely, Elonka. Just something simple, handwritten, shows that you took the time to do it, but an email can work too.
My boss from 3 years ago, I've been working with him for 3 years, still has my thank you note.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I don't remember what I wrote. It was handwritten. And it was so unbecoming of me. It's unrepresentative. But along those thoughts, I'm going to try to keep with your theme of turning what you like to do into a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
I work for a company that covers career centers here in Tennessee for the entire almost western half of Tennessee. And I'll give you some insight, or inside, actually, I won't say proprietary or Staples. Staples, the office company, is restructuring. They're literally shutting down their delivery system, and they're going to outsource it. One of their employees, and I saw the layoff letter, the termination letter he's got a few weeks or whatever it is, This guy's turning around, he's going to apply for a grant to open a truck driving school. He likes driving, he likes teaching driving, he's going to try, hey, the niche market, they open and close by the minute, you know. So that's one. And another one I made yesterday, Beretta is opening up a factory in Gallatin. I don't know who was in here, but they do have an information fair next Friday up in the National State Community College in Gallatin. So if you want to make guns, help make guns. They do use CNC routing from what I understand. Thank you, Elonka.
Oh, sure. Thank you notes matter. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, well, those of you that are in good jobs, congratulations. However, generally, the idea of staying at a company for decades is previous generations now. People tend to be changing jobs every couple of years, 2-3 years these days. So good luck at getting your next job. Thank you for coming.